of San Angelo. Big blind is $16. Small blind is $8. Fold. Fold.
Raise.
The gentleman calls.
I raise. Fold.
Oh, fold.
Got him. I fold.
I check.
The gentleman wins $462. The gentleman calls.
Fold. I fold.
Raise.
Fold.
Fold.
The gentleman calls.
I raise.
The gentleman calls.
Fold.
I fold.
The gentleman calls.
Fold. I fold.
The gentleman calls.
I fold.
Raise.
The gentleman calls. The flop.
I check.
I raise.
The river.
I raise.
I fold.
These are real skills.
The big blind is raised to $20. The small blind is. The miss calls.
Fold. I fold.
The gentleman calls.
Oh, that's a lot to bet.
Fold.
The madam calls.
Fold.
The flop.
Raise.
I fold.
These are real skills.
Fold. I fold.
The gentleman calls.
I fold. Fold. I raise.
The gentleman calls.
Check.
Check.
Oh, fold.
The gentleman wins $512.
Fold. Fold.
I fold.
I fold. The gentleman calls. The lady calls.
I raise.
The gentleman calls. The flop.
I check.
Player check.
I fold.
The gentleman calls.
Fold.
Raise. These are real skills.
Raise.
Fold. Not a lot to bet.
Fold. I fold.
The gentleman calls. The river. All in with $377. The gentleman wins $452. The big blind is raised to $30. The small blind is.
Fold. Fold.
The gentleman calls.
Fold.
Flop.
Check. 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 Fold. Oh, fold.
I raise. Look out for me.
Player has left the table.
Fold. Fold.
The gentleman calls.
I check.
I check.
I raise.
Fold.
I fold.
The gentleman calls. All in $607. The gentleman wins $1,286. This player has left the table.
I raise.
The gentleman calls.
I fold. I fold. I raise.
Fold.
I win.
The gentleman calls. The gentleman calls.
I fold. Oh goodness, I am shaking. I raise.
The gentleman calls. The gentleman calls. The gentleman calls. All in with $516. The gentleman wins $1,197. The big blind is raised to $50. The small blind is $5.
Fold.
I fold.
The gentleman calls. The gentleman calls.
I fold. Oh, fold.
The gentleman wins $350.
I fold. That's a lot to bet. I fold.
The miss calls.
Check.
Turn.
I fold.
River. All in $178. Winner takes $406.
That's a lot to bet. I fold.
The gentleman calls.
Fold.
Flop.
I raise. I'm the winner.
Fold.
The gentleman calls.
Raise.
I fold. I fold.
The gentleman calls. Player checks. The gentleman wins $415. A new player has joined the table. The big blind is raised to $150.
Fold.
The lady calls.
Fold.
I check. The flop.
I check.
I check.
Check. Check. Check. I check.
River.
I check.
Sorry, but I won.
The gentleman wins $500.
Fold.
The gentleman calls. The miss calls.
I fold. I fold.
Foul. Yeah, I check.
Flop.
Fold. I fold.
Raise. Fold. I knew I was good.
The madam calls.
Fold.
I fold. Oh goodness, just shaking.
The flop.
I check.
I raise.
Fold. Oh, fold.
The madam call. Turn. The river.
I check.
I win.
Player has gentleman wins $1,277. The lady calls. The gentleman calls. The lady calls. Player checks. Flop. Player checks.
Check.
All in with $156. River.
Hey, I'm doing pretty well.
This player has left the table. The big blind is raised to $170. The gentleman calls.
Raise.
The gentleman calls. Flop.
Raise. I fold. Look out for me.
This player has left the table. The gentleman calls. Flop.
Check.
I check.
Turn.
I check.
The river.
Check.
Raise.
I fold.
The gentleman wins $2,168.
I raise.
The gentleman calls. The flop.
Check. 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 I fold. Sorry, I won.
The gentleman calls. The flop. Player checks.
I check. Check.
Fold. I fold.
Fold.
The big blind is raised to $200.
Fold.
The gentleman calls. Flop.
Check. I raise. I win.
The gentleman wins $4,022. The gentleman calls. The gentleman calls.
Raise.
The gentleman calls.
I check.
The madam calls.
I check.
This player has left the table. The gentleman calls. The flop. The gentleman calls. Flop.
Check.
Player turns.
Raise. It's a biscuit.
This player has left the table. The big blind is raised to $400. The gentleman wins $1,200. The gentleman calls.
I got you.
The gentleman calls.
Raise. Man, I'm good. I raise. I check.
Turn.
I check.
The big blind is raised to $600. The gentleman calls.
I check. I check.
The gentleman wins $1,800. The river. All in $3,045. The gentleman wins $4,245.
Raise. Those chips are mine.
The big blind is raised to $800. Flop.
Fold.
The gentleman wins $2,400.
I check. Check.
Player turns.
I raise.
River.
Check.
The gentleman wins $8,231. This player has left the table. Welcome to the Saloon of San Angelo. Big blind is $16. Small blind is $8. Fold. Fold.
Raise.
The gentleman calls.
I raise. Fold.
Oh, fold.
I fold. I check.
The gentleman wins $462. The gentleman calls.
Fold. I fold.
Raise.
Fold. Fold. The gentleman calls.
I raise.
The gentleman calls.
Fold.
I fold.
The gentleman calls.
Fold. I fold.
The gentleman calls. Fold.
Raise.
The gentleman calls. The flop.
I check.
I raise.
The river.
I raise.
I fold.
These are real skills.
The big blind is raised to $20. The small blind is. The miss calls.
Fold.
I fold. The gentleman calls.
Oh, that's a lot to bet.
Fold.
The madam calls. The flop.
Raise.
I fold.
These are real skills.
Fold.
The gentleman calls. I fold.
Fold. I raise.
The gentleman calls.
Check.
Check.
Oh, fold.
The gentleman wins $512.
Fold.
I fold. I fold. The gentleman calls. The lady calls.
I raise.
The gentleman calls. The flop.
I check.
Player check.
I fold.
The gentleman calls.
Fold.
Raise. These are real skills.
Raise.
Fold. That's a lot to bet.
Fold.
I fold. The gentleman calls. The river. All in with $377. The gentleman wins $452. The big blind is raised to $30. The small blind is.
Fold. Fold.
The gentleman calls.
Fold.
Flop.
Check. 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 Fold.
I raise. You got me.
Player has left the table.